to me about this book is it's a book of God's faithfulness to his people. And I think that if you read the book and you know the story, you'll see that just evident. And we'll talk a little bit about that too still tonight. It's also a book of sacrifice and yielding of wills. If you look at Esther and the decisions and the choices that she made, and even Mordecai, they put a lot on the line and had to yield themselves to what the decisions they made. So it's a book of sacrifice and the yielding of wills. It's also a book of God's choice to use his people to do his will. And we talked about that quite a bit last time on Wednesday. And probably the key verse, in this whole book, at least for me anyway, is when he is about that, for a time such as this, okay? And so Esther was given beauty. Esther was put in the right position for a time such as this. And we can use that even now in our situation right here, even though, we're not going to be the queen of an empire, or we're not going to be a king of an empire even. God can use us and chooses to use us because he could do, he could make miracles. He could breathe out anything. You know what I'm saying? He could write in the sky if he wanted to. He could do whatever he wants to, but he doesn't choose to do that. What did he choose? He chooses to use us to show his love to other people. And so we are here. There's an important verse talks about he set the times and all that stuff, and he put us here at this time. I believe that with all my heart, that Nathan was born at the exact time God wanted him to be born. He put him and he gave him a job to do. In other words, he's got something that he wants Nathan to accomplish in his lifetime. And what Mordecai had said to Esther is that if the position that she put in, he said, who knows, if you don't take this opportunity, then salvation for the Jews will arise from somewhere else. And so I think that is true. I think that we all have something that God wants us to do, but his will is going to get done, okay? You understand what I'm saying? So we're going to get the blessing if we do it, and he uses us, we allow him to use us, or if we don't, then he'll give somebody else that blessing. He'll use somebody else to accomplish his will. Do you understand what I'm saying? And so we talked about that. The last one that I didn't talk about much was Satan's tactics hadn't changed yet. And so you can see Satan all through this book. And I hope most of you, because you might be a little bit lost if you haven't ever read the book of Esther, and I don't want to go through the whole book, but I will tell you the main characters. Okay, so the main characters there was a king, and I'm going to call him King Xerxes. He has two different names, a Hebrew name and a Persian name, just like Esther has two different names. And so Esther is another main character. She's an orphan, a little orphan Jewish girl that was adopted by her older cousin, Mordecai, who is also a main character. And Mordecai evidently was an important person in the kingdom. Now, this is a vast kingdom. It had like 127 provinces, okay? And we know that he's an important person because he sat in the king's gate. And what that usually meant was that he judged. That's a lot of times when you hear that word that he sat in the gate, that they judged. And so people would come up and bring a problem, and he would judge between it. So he was probably a judge in that system, Another important person in this was Haman. And Haman ended up becoming like second in command of this king's empire, okay? And Haman is a direct relative of Agag. Y'all know who Agag is? Everybody know who King Agag was? Anybody that was not here the other day, can y'all tell me? Or that what? Yeah, I don't want you. If you already know, don't say it. I mean, if you were here, because you know it last week. Anybody know who Agag was? Anybody? King Agag was who Saul was supposed to kill. Okay, remember God told, Samuel told Saul to kill all the Amalekites. Okay, and he captured King Agag, but he spared his life. Do you remember that? And so Agag is a kin of Amalek. Okay, Amalek goes all the way back to when the children of Israel were coming out of into the wilderness, and they fought against him, okay? And Amalek is a direct kin of Esau, okay? So Esau is kind of where it started. Jacob have I loved, Esau have I hated, okay? That's what God said. So that's kind of where we are. If you know the story, in the story, this is one of the things that I really wanted to talk about that I didn't get to last time. In the story, Mordecai, the reason that Haman didn't like Mordecai, there was more than one, but he didn't like the Jews because he was a direct descendant of Agag, okay? And he knew the history. It was like, I think, 300 and something years between Agag and Haman, okay? And so he knew what had happened. He knew that the Jews and the Amalekites were enemies, all right? And so he didn't like the Jews. He did not like them. Mordecai also knew that Haman was an Amalekite, okay, from that descendant, from that line. So, it's customary in that time, royalty, and Haman would have been royalty because, like I said, he was like second in command of this kingdom, right under the king. And so, evidently, like when he went through the streets or something, people would bow down, Haman, okay? Just like the king. When the king went through, people would bow down. Well, guess who didn't bow down whenever Haman came through the streets? Mordecai, okay? And because of that, Haman did not like him a bit. Now, what I want to talk about, and I want to get your feedback, is do y'all think that Haman did right by not bowing to, Mordecai, do you think Mordecai did right by not bowing to Haman? What's y'all's thought? Don't everybody speak at once. And it is something you got to think about a little bit, okay? Because we're kind of in a quandary in today's society. We really are. We see a lot of disrespect for authority, don't we? I mean, it's really, to me, it's rampant. I mean, I think it's gone way overboard. And some of you older folks, I'm kind of stuck in the middle, but some of the older ones in here can remember, I mean, there was no questioning of authority whatsoever. Am I right, older folks? I mean, you didn't question the government. You didn't question police officers. You just didn't do it. Now, it's exactly the opposite. We question them before we do what they say. Am I right? I mean, for the most part, our society, let me put it that way. And so, do y'all think, Mordecai did not bow to Haman? Now, I guess he was supposed to. I don't know. I mean, I'm assuming that was a custom or they was supposed to do it because everybody else did, because the reason one of the reasons he didn't like Mordecai specifically was because he didn't bow to him. Okay? He didn't give him respect. So do y'all think that he did right or wrong? Melba, let me get you where everybody can hear you.
To me, it's kind of significant that he didn't bow, because knowing their Jewish background and whether they were ever how long that had been since they had practiced the Jewish customs, to think of him allowing his adopted daughter to go and be presented as one of the harem members and to be, go before the king and have that night with the king. And that seemed to be very important to Mordecai, that she have that position for whatever reason. And I kind of took it as a respect for the king. Right. And perhaps maybe thinking that somewhere down the line it would bring them favor, the Jews some favor. So it's kind of surprising that he didn't bow, just because he seemed to be compliant with everything else prior to that.
And that is a good point. And I think it is surprising. And I'm not telling you whether I think it's right or wrong yet. Okay, I'm going to tell you what I think here in just a minute. But I think it is surprising that he didn't. But I think we know why he didn't, is because he did not like Haman, right? Because he knew Haman's background, right? He knew what happened with the Amalekites, okay? And so I want to read you something. While you're thinking about whether he did right or wrong, I want to read you something. And this is what God had said. This was a promise of God's, okay? And I want you to, and you don't have to turn, Chris, you can put it up there if you want to. It's in Exodus. It's Exodus 17:14. I want you to listen to what this says. Exodus 17:14 said, Then the Lord said to Moses, Write this in a book as a memorial and recite it to Joshua, that I will utterly blot out the memory of Amalek under heaven. Moses built an altar and named it, The Lord is my banner. That's the only time that phrase is used in the Bible. And he said, the Lord has sworn, the Lord will have war against Amalek from generation to generation. Okay? And so we see that right now. Okay? So Mordecai would have known this. I mean, he would have read the scriptures, right? And so he would have known that this guy is the enemy of the Jews, right? And so that brings me still to my question. I tell you what, let me go about it this way. What does the Bible say about giving honor and respect to other people or to even your enemy? Love your enemy, okay? What else? Anybody else? Yeah, that's right. He talks about that. Jesus talks about that, right? About respecting people in authority. So what do y'all think? Malachi do right or wrong? And it's easy for us to say, Mordecai, he's pretty brave, because we're on Mordecai's side, right? We're on Mordecai's side. But let's reverse the situation. Let's say in 2020, Donald Trump doesn't decide to run again, and he runs, and there's a Muslim that runs. Okay, a Muslim runs, he wins, he gets president. What do y'all think? He wants us to go, and he makes it to where we got to go a call to prayer, wherever, to Mecca 3 times a day. What do y'all think? Do we do it? No.
That's Daniel again.
Yeah.
That's Daniel.
That's right.
That's the whole situation in Daniel.
True. Daniel didn't disrespect the king, though. Now, he didn't do his order, did he? He didn't do his order. So it's a fine deal, isn't it? I mean, it's a in today's society, how do we teach our children? How can we reverse this trend of respect for authority? I mean, it is, like I said, I really believe, I have ultimate respect for police officers. They have such a hard job. I mean, they have, and it's getting harder day by day. I heard 2 got killed today or got shot. I think there was in a shootout today in Oklahoma, I believe, or something like that. But anyway, no, it was in Kansas or Missouri, one of them. But the lack of respect for law enforcement has gone. I mean, it is unbelievable what's happening in that area. So how do we teach our kids? What do y'all think? What can we do? I mean, yeah, be an example. I would imagine, I'm not going to say that every case, because I wasn't at every case, but I would say in 99% of the cases where a police officer has shot somebody, it's because they didn't comply with what the police officer asked them to do, right? I mean, if they told them to stop or get down or put your hands, get your hands up, whatever it was, they didn't do it. Why? Because they didn't respect authority, right? I mean, we have lost that respect for authority. And I'm afraid what's going to keep going is that it's going to keep getting worse, and it's boil over to us with our government, and it's already there somewhat, right? I mean, and while, a lot of us might be happy that the Republicans got in the White House, and it will comply with what, they say, but the other side, I mean, we're already seeing it. As soon as the election was over with, there was all kind of demonstrations, I'm not sure what they thought they were going to solve, because it was over. But I mean, you know, we can see the lack of respect for authority just keep on growing.
I think it's an issue of accountability. Before my time, I know that a teacher could grab a student up and give them licks right there in the classroom. I know before my time, police officers didn't have to walk on eggshells worrying about being sued or being taken to court, lose their job, lose their livelihood. The community, the country that we live in right now is more concerned with people's rights than it is with doing what's right.
That's right. You know, sorry about that. You know, even in my job, which, you know, we have quite a bit of authority. Now, a lot of times we don't take it. Like on a scene, I'm in charge of that scene, and if I want the public to get back, I have the authority to keep them back. Now, I don't have a gun, right? So I can't, I can't physically stop them, but I have the authority to have them to stay back, you know, for their safety and stuff like that. But even in my job, you can see where people don't listen like they used to. You know, I've been doing it for 21 plus years, and from when I started to now, I can see a difference in the attitudes of people whenever we tell them to do something, or even in respect for the scene. You know, I mean, we got people that'll drive right through a wreck scene and they don't think nothing about it. I mean, you know, it just because they don't respect authority. I mean, they don't care. You know what I'm saying? That's true. Did y'all hear that?
They've done away with the consequences.
Consequences aren't there. Yeah, that's right. That is exactly right. Anybody else have a thought or about that? So what do y'all think? I ain't really heard anybody say whether Mordecai did right or wrong. It's kind of a hard one, isn't it? It really is. Yeah. Well, of course, he did learn of his actions. I mean, he did find out that what Haman's plot for the Jews. But you know, when you look at the story, Haman came about his plan because he was mad at Mordecai. Okay, he decided to exterminate the Jews because he was mad that Mordecai wouldn't. Now he hated the Jews to begin with. I believe that with all my heart. But I think what we've got to figure out, you know, there is a fine line, you know, as to respecting authority and respecting, you know, just like the President of the United States, we need to respect that office, you know, even though we don't agree with a lot of the stuff that comes out of that, you know, just like, you know, but we need to respect that office. Now, and a lot of times it's really easy to judge from this side, okay? He knows a whole lot more of what's going on than what we do. You understand what I'm saying? Now, certain issues, I mean, you know, it's easy to draw a line in the sand on certain stuff like abortion. I mean, stuff like that. I mean, that's easy to draw a line on, okay? But some of the stuff that we probably criticize, whoever it is, it doesn't matter, you know, that it's Obama or if it's Trump. You know, we don't get to see the whole picture like they do. You understand what I'm saying? It's that way with all authority. You know, we're only seeing half the side, right? I think that's one of our problems in society today is that jumping to conclusions. I mean, I think that we see that all the way from the very top to all the way to the church house, to be honest with you. And you can start seeing it, you know, it's this not trusting your people in charge of you started when? What do y'all think? Probably in the 60s. What do y'all think, folks? Late 60s? 50s? 50s? Okay, so what do you think, Jay? What started this?
For those of you that can, remember back in the 50s, Ozzie and Harriet and a lot of those family shows, the father was the head of the house. He was looked up to, he was respected. And starting in the 60s, probably mid-60s, that whole family structure started changing. And when it changed, they showed the father as deadbeat,
Right.
disrespecting the husband. And I think when you get back all the way to it, it's the lack of a family structure that's respected.
Very good. Very good. Yeah, and you know, it is true how much media that we intake. And if you look at the shows on today about how they picture the family, or how they picture, you know, the woman or the man's role in the family, I mean, it's complete. They're bombarding our children all the time. I mean, and not only children, adults. And that's why I think you see that trend going more and more. I really do. Good. Thank you, Jay. That was good. Sure enough. Anybody else have something on that before I move on a little bit? Okay. So I wanted to get back to what happened kind of at the end. So if y'all know the story, the plot was foiled. Okay. The king listened to Esther, and because of Haman's pride, basically, he was found out, and so the king had actually given an edict that the enemies of the Jews could kill him. Okay, and he sealed it with his ring, and when you did that, you couldn't reverse it. So what he did he allowed the Jews to protect themselves, or actually kill their enemies, is what he ended up doing. So that's how he changed the edict. And they did. It happened. The Jews were victorious. They defended themselves. They not only did that, they killed their enemies. And this is that verse that I read in Exodus where it said that God will blot out Amalek from the... This is the fulfillment of that promise is in Esther. Okay? That was the end of the Amalekites right here. No more Amalekites. Okay? And so they named that feast Purim. Okay? Anybody know why they named it Purim? Anybody? Okay. We'll break the word down. Y'all know what a pur is? P-U-R? Anybody? Huh? What a kitty does. That kind of is right. Yeah. Maybe in Persian or no, probably, yeah, it'd be pre-Persian, I guess. It's the casting of lots. Okay. So that's what pur means. And Haman cast lots onto whether or not what he was going to do to the Jews. Okay, this was found out, and so let me read it to you. Go to Esther 9, verse 20. Esther 9, verse 20. Now, this is what has happened here is that the Jews have destroyed their enemies. It's over with. And now this is instituting a new feast. Okay, so this is not a Mosaic feast. So the Mosaic feast are the 7, but this feast is still done today. Okay, they still celebrate this feast today in Israel. Okay, so 9:20 says, Then Mordecai recorded these events and sent letters to all the Jews who were in all the provinces of King Xerxes, both near and far, obliging them to celebrate the 14th day of the month of Adar, not Adair, but Adar, and the 15th day of the same month annually. Because on those days the Jews rid themselves of their enemies, and it was a month in which was turned for them from sorrow into gladness, and from mourning into a holiday, that they should make the days of feasting and rejoicing, and sending portions of food to one another and gifts to the poor. Thus the Jews undertook what they had started to do and what Mordecai had written to them. For Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the adversary of the Jews, had schemed against the Jewish to destroy them, and had cast pur, that is a lot, to disturb them and destroy them. But when it came to the king's attention, he commanded by letter that this wicked scheme, which he had devised against the Jews, should return on his own head, and that he and his sons should be hanged on the gallows. Therefore they call these days Purim, after the name of Pur. And because of the instructions of this letter, both that they had seen and regarded what had happened to them. The Jews established and made a custom for themselves from the descendants for all of those who had allied with them, so that they would not fail to celebrate these 2 days according to the regulation and according to their appointed time annually. So these days were to be remembered and celebrated throughout every generation, every family, every province, every city. These days of Purim were not to fail from among the Jews from their memory and fade from their descendants. So this is a big deal. Okay, this was a big deal. Like I said, some of y'all weren't here. But sometimes you wonder why God picked Esther to write a book in his Bible. I mean, it's a neat story, right? And it really is. But you think about all the women in the Bible. I was thinking, there could be a book of Mary. There could be a book of Hannah. There could be a book of Eve. That would be a neat book to read, right? But he chose 2 women, the book of Ruth and the book of Esther, to include in his Bible. So I think that should tell us that this is an important story. And like those 4 things that I read, especially the first 3, this is a book of God's faithfulness. And when he gives you a promise, he's going to fulfill it. And that's what he did. He's done that for the Jews, and he's still doing that right now. And he will continue, because it's not all the way through. All the promises haven't been fulfilled, but they will at the appointed time. And so I thought that was neat. Anybody have a question about that or anything else? So that pretty much wraps up to the very last one. Anybody have a question so far? Okay. All right, so the last one that I wanted to talk about was Satan's tactics never change. Now, we have to realize that there's a bigger picture here, okay? We don't wrestle with flesh and blood, but with spiritual wickedness on high, okay? And I think it would do us good if we understand that, really. And, you can look at Satan's tactics, and he really hadn't changed them much from the very beginning, okay? And so, John 10:10, can anybody quote it? I asked somebody to quote it last week. Who? Come on, speak up if you know it. The thief comes to kill, steal, and destroy, but I have come, Jesus talking, I have come to give life and to give it more abundantly. That's John 10:10. And so the thief, a lot of people, we dwell on the last part of that verse because that's the fun part, that God came to give us life and to give it more abundantly. But the first part of that verse is the thief comes, and the thief is the devil, to steal, kill, and destroy. And you can look at those 3 things, and that's what his MO is. That's what his method of operation is to kill, steal, and destroy. All right, you look at, y'all think about that in the Bible. Think about his tactics. Can y'all name some of them where you can see that, where he came to kill, steal, and destroy? Name some of them for me. In the garden, very good. What did he do in the garden? What did he steal from us? What did he kill from us in the garden? So what did he kill in the garden? Yeah, he did. He said, God said, in the day that you eat of this fruit, you will surely die, right? And then what did Satan say? He didn't really mean he was going to die, did you? Well, they did die, didn't they? So they got killed spiritually. We were separated from, and not only them too, but all of us. From now on, from that point on, that separated all of mankind from God, okay? So he killed spiritually Adam and Eve that day. What else? He also stole, what'd you say? Fellowship. That's right. He stole fellowship. Because we had fellowship with God. In the garden, they had fellowship. They could walk and talk with the Lord. Nothing between them, okay? That no longer happened after that. No longer. Until we go back to the garden again, will that happen again? So name some more. So the garden. What else can you see through history that Satan did, where you can see what his method of operation is? Come on, y'all, put your thinking hats on. Joseph, okay. Explain. What did Joseph say? Yeah. What? Yeah. Well, okay. But he said, what you meant for what you meant for evil, God meant for good, right? Mm-hmm. And so there was a spiritual battle going on there that we had no idea. Understand, a lot like Esther. God put Esther in a certain position to save the Jews, didn't he? He put Joseph in that same position, didn't he? He made him go through that hardship, stayed in jail for 2 years. So at a time, perfect time, he could save the Jews, right? God has a plan. Satan's tried to come against it. What else can you see that where Satan's tried to come against God's plan? There's a bunch of different examples. Come on. Daniel was one. Okay, explain, Jay. There you go. Okay, good. Didn't have that one down. Where else can you see it? Yeah. That's right. That's right. In fact, he said he was the king of Persia. He was fighting against the king of Persia is what he said in Daniel. Yeah, that's right. All right, keep coming. There's still some more. Old and New Testament. And not only Old and New Testament, but modern history where Satan's still doing this. Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry, I can't hear you, dear. Still can't hear you. Hold on. What'd you say?
I think over and over again when anyone came against the Jewish people, they were trying to forestall Jesus being born. Yeah. So it happened over and over again in the Old Testament, and they're still coming against the Jews.
Still coming against the Jews now. Okay, since you brought up Jesus, he's our main focus. He's what this whole thing's about. What did Satan do to try to kill Jesus? Whenever he was born. That's right, killed the babies, right? Herod did. Herod said all the babies that were born 2 years and under from Bethlehem, we're going to kill every one of them. So, the thief comes to kill, steal, and destroy. Now, there's a similar, he tried to do this again in the Old Testament. Come on. Moses, that's exactly right. He did the same thing with Moses, right? He going to have all the male Jews, they were going to kill them because, I read that because I wanted to see exactly what it said, but the Lord had allowed, under persecution, the Hebrews to grow. I'm talking about their numbers swelled, and the Egyptians looked at them and said, man, they're fixing to get too big for their britches, is basically what they say. They're going to be able to outnumber us, and they're going to be able to kill us. So the king decided, okay, we're going to kill every male, anytime that a Hebrew woman has a male, kill them. And so they would have a lot of like midwives and stuff like that. He instructed the Egyptian midwives, if they helped a Hebrew woman give birth, kill them, kill the males. Leave the females, kill the males. Well, you would think that it might be the other way around, right? It might be, let's kill the females, they're the ones that have babies, right? But that's not what he did. He said kill the males. Why? Because of Moses, right? He knew that Satan knew about Moses, or there was gonna be something happen. So, what else? Can y'all think of some more? There you go. That's exactly right. Of course, he rose up a bunch of nations, didn't he? I mean, a bunch of nations came about to conquer the Jews, to kill them, to snuff them. I mean, a lot of them came out. Now, think of something modern. When I say modern history, within the last couple hundred years, what did Satan do to try to come against the Jews? What did he do? Hitler. That's exactly right. Holocaust. I mean, he tried to exterminate the Jews. He tried to kill every single one of them, didn't he? So see, his methods haven't changed whatsoever. Not whatsoever. Let's see here. I want to make sure that I get this all. What time is it? We're getting 7:30. We're about right there. I want to read to you. This is something that I wanted to read because I think it's important. It goes right along with what we're talking about. And it's Ephesians 6. Now, I quoted this a while ago, but turn with me to Ephesians 6, 11 through 18. And, of course, I just quoted the very first part of it, but I really thought that the rest of it was really good. Because how can we, if we understand his methods, if we understand his the way he works, then I think we can, anytime you understand your enemy and the way they work, you'll be a lot better off to guard against them. Am I right? Just like a football team. I mean, if the defensive coordinator knows what plays that the offense is going to run, don't you think he can do a little bit better job of defending those plays if he knew it right? So, Ephesians 6. I'm going to start with 10. How about that? Finally, be strong in the Lord and strength in his might. Put on the full armor of God so that you may be able to stand firm against the schemes of the devil. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against rulers, against powers, against world forces of the darkness, against spiritual forces of wickedness in heavenly places. Therefore, take up the full armor of God so that you will be able to resist in that evil day, and having done everything to stand firm, having therefore girded your loins with truth, having put on the breastplate of righteousness, having shod your feet with the preparation of the gospel of peace. In addition to all, take up the shield of faith with which you are able to extinguish the flaming arrows of the evil one. Take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God. With all prayer and petition, pray at all times in the Spirit, with this in view. Be alert with all perseverance and petition for all the saints, and pray on my behalf that utterance which may be given to me in the opening of my mouth, to make known the boldness of the mystery of the gospel, for which I am an ambassador in chains, that I am proclaiming, that I may speak boldly as I ought to speak. So, there is a purpose for all that stuff that we're supposed to put on. Now, that verse is an action verse, okay? So in other words, you get it, you have it. If you're a believer, you have that stuff, but you got to put it on, okay? It just can't lay there, just like my bunker gear at the fire station. If I don't put it on and I go into a fire without it, even though I've got it over here, it's sitting over here by the truck, I'm going to get burned. Okay, but now if I have all my stuff on, if I put on my helmet, my pants, and my gloves, it goes really well along with the fireman, really. But but I have to put it on. It just don't, So we do too. There's a lot of stuff going on, and I think I'll end it with this. Go back to Esther, and I'll read to you the key verse, because I really want you to get this. If we can understand this, I think it'll give us a great outlook for our life. 4:13. Mordecai is speaking to Esther here, okay? This is, to me, the key verse in all of Esther. Then Mordecai told them to reply to Esther, "Do not imagine that you and the king's palace can escape any more than all the Jews." Now I'm going to fill you in. For Esther to go before the king was death. Okay, so without being summoned, you could not go before the king. So if you did, and he wanted to, if it didn't please him, he could have you killed, including the queen. All right? And so she went before the king, or that's what Mordecai was wanting her to do, so he could stop this. She could get him to stop this foolishness of killing all the Jews. And so then Mordecai told them to reply to Esther, "Do not imagine that you and the king's palace can escape any more than the Jews. For if you remain silent at a time such as this, relief and deliverance will arise from the Jews from another place, and you and your father's house will perish. For who knows whether you have not attained royalty for a time such as this." So each one of us, folks, has a gift. And God has given it to us for a purpose. It's not just for our own benefit, okay? It's to benefit His kingdom. He has a purpose. And I gave this example last time about, most people know Billy Graham. I mean, they know what a great evangelist Billy Graham is. But do you know the person that brought Billy Graham to Christ? And not only that, do you know the person who brought Billy Graham's person to Christ? And I heard a story on this one time. It was a Sunday school teacher that that witnessed to him, brought him to Christ. And that might have been his only purpose on this whole earth. That was what God wanted him to do, and he did it, fulfilled it completely. He witnessed to Billy Graham, and Billy Graham became the evangelist that that He, you know, I mean, we don't even know how many people have been saved because of that, right? But that one guy that might have only, you know, witnessed to one person. See, you understand what I'm saying? God has a purpose for each one of us. Now, some of us, might be like Queen Esther way up here. You know, she was a queen. Well, for most of us, it's not that way. You know, it might just be, I don't know. Each one of us is different. God has a different plan for each one of us. But what is important is that you understand God has a plan for your life, and He wants you to do it for a time such as this, the time that we live in right now. And we have challenges just like they did back then. And it's very important if we can understand that and fully grasp that. I think that we can see each day's purpose a little bit different. Really do. Anybody have a question or comment? Anybody? Well, y'all are quiet tonight. I can barely get y'all to talk. Okay. All right. Well, let me pray, and then let's see. I don't have a sheet, so I don't know. I know Nate's mom is having surgery tomorrow. Heart procedure tomorrow. So it's one of the reasons why he's not here tonight. But so yeah, Sandra's here. Praise the Lord. She's doing better. She had a little episode yesterday. Anybody else know of anybody? Brother Jay, you know of any?
Well, Randall he's about to come back to Greenville.
Rehab type again? No, just
Hospital.
in the hospital.
But he's coming back to Greenville, and he's off of the respirator. And if you talked to him today? So he is doing better, but
He was pretty critical there for a while, wasn't he? He was pretty critical. And I know some of y'all might have never met Randall, but man, what a man. He had a heart of gold. He really did. He loved this church, and he loved doing stuff for them kids over there as much as I have. Yeah, I think he was up here not too long ago. He'd went to a bunch of garage sales. He's a garage sale man. He'd go to garage sales and buy stuff to give to that store over there so the Awana kids could have something to buy with their Awana bucks. And of course, you know, when he was here, he was a deacon, or he still is a deacon. He would get, I mean, how many of y'all got a peppermint from him? Yeah, a bunch of people. So. Right. Yeah. Good. Yeah, that will mean the world to him. I'm serious. He'd go. That was his purpose, was to go around the garage sales, not to buy for himself, but to buy for those kids over there. I mean, it's pretty amazing. It really was. Anybody else? Okay, well, let's pray, and then we'll break up and pray. Father God, thank you for tonight, Lord. I thank you so much for your word, Lord. I just want to really get it in our hearts, Lord, of how important it is to realize